Шановні колеги,
Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and the topic of the next press briefing is how to get married in one day. Our speakers are Pavlo Petrenko, the Minister of Justice of Ukraine, and Pavlo Moroz, Deputy Minister of Justice of Ukraine, and also People's Deputy Igor Alexeyev. Dear colleagues, welcome on stage. Good afternoon, dear friends. The topic of today's briefing is the issue is simplification and reforming the system of services concerning registering of marriage. And last meeting of the government supported the initiative of the Ministry of Justice to bring up to European standards those issues that concerning of Ukrainian, the personal life of Ukrainians, and maybe the most pleasant moments in the lives of our Ukrainian citizens connected with registration of marriage. The system that existed in Ukraine, it created bureaucratic obstacles concerning registration of marriage, and our young Ukrainians had to get accustomed to Soviet norms and wait for registration for 30 days. And the official established the amount of time to get the stamp on their passports. The Ukrainian parliament, after the decision of the government about our pilot project, supported our decision and also introduced new cards. And in the law that was voted yesterday, Soviet stamps were cancelled. And these things coincide in time, and we start our pilot project that allows Ukrainian young people to register the marriage in one day and to get marriage without queues, without any Soviet proceedings in order to register their marriage. So I would like to tell you about the algorithm, and I will mention what cities will be included in the project. It is Mariupol, Severodonetsk, frontline towns. There will be centers open that will provide the opportunities to IDPs that go through from this AU area. They will allow to get the documents during 24 hours to get married if they decided to do so, and if they want to be registered at the place of their deployment. So also Kherson will be included, because this is a town where Ukrainian citizens address those who live in occupied areas to get legal documents. That's why in Kherson a center will be opened that will provide registration of marriage during 24 hours. And for Ukrainian citizens who come from temporarily occupied Crimea, this service will be fast, and they will get Ukrainian documents that testify that they are married. And we launched throughout the country the opportunity to get these documents about the registration of birth and certificate of death of those people who are in the occupied territories. And this is the further step in order that those who live in occupied lived in occupied areas, they could be registered in the territory of Ukraine in 24 hours. And also Kiev and Odessa, Lviv will be included in the program. There are many tourists, in order that people who want to use this service as to this fast procedure of marriage registration could do it in those towns during 24 hours. And the advantages of the procedure. Firstly, the registration will be carried out at the place and time established by the young people. Then They should not attend these offices several times, only once. And also, according to the provision, the organizers of the ceremony that will be communal enterprises or state enterprises that are under coordination of the state body, and we will also include them in this project. And the funds that will be provided from the registration of marriage will go to the local budget. And starting next year, the Ministry of Justice, together with our colleagues from Parliament, plan to transfer the function of registration to local governments. And we want to see their readiness to provide quality service to Ukrainian citizens. As to procedure, how it will be done. Young people who want to use the service of express marriage, and I saw that in the media they call it Ukrainian Las Vegas, they can address to the organizers of marriage ceremonies, and the information will be provided at the site of the Ministry of Justice and our justice departments. And these organizers are local councils or local administrations. Accordingly, there will be time and place mentioned, and the work hours of the center that provide the service. Then young people will choose time and place when and where they would like to register. Then they conclude the contract with organizers, and then they come to the wedding. So the procedure will be fast, and certificate of marriage will be provided immediately, and in 24 hours from taking the decision and registration of the marriage, our young people will be able to get the service. So also I would like to remind that there is one more service that the Ministry of Justice launched last year. This is the opportunity to submit the documents through the internet, so you can apply the documents to get married, and this service is available throughout the country, and we will demonstrate in online mode, and we will remind to young people how to simplify this procedure and how to submit the documents online. And they will get the opportunity to be married in 24 hours. So these are the standards of American Las Vegas. Then you can come, and 24 hours a day you can get this registration. And in separate cities, the service of marriage registration will work 24 hours, not in 6 towns, but in 1 or 2 places. We now conduct consultations with the city mayors, those cities who are in the pilot project, and if we conclude the regime of their work in 2 cities, there will be opportunity to be registered even at night, if there is such a will of Ukrainian people who want to get married. So we would like to show you the procedure of registration online, but I would like to dismantle several myths that are on the internet concerning divorce. Of course, the statement that divorce, that there should be a procedure when people should have time to think over their decision of divorce. And we believe that Ukrainian family should be strong, and we should provide people with opportunity to preserve their family. And the decision was right, and it was stated by the Prime Minister, Mr. Groisman, that divorce should be conservative. If the couple, if both spouses want to get divorced. So if they do not have issues with their assets, or they do not have young children in such a situation, we should remove bureaucratic obstacles that existed from Soviet times in instructions that were adopted and during the times of the Soviet system. And a man and a woman, if they want to get a divorce and they do not have disagreements as to their assets or their children, so they come 3 times to the registration institutions. So they first apply, then they should come, and the third time they should come for the certificate of divorce. So, but people are free if they decided together that, and they do not have underage children, and they do not have disagreement as to their assets, and they do not want to live together. So the state has no right to provide such framework. So our position is like this, that the family is the basis of our society, and if there is an opportunity to preserve the family, state won't provide simplification in unilateral divorce. But if there is full agreement of man and woman, we will remove those Soviet procedures that now create discomfort and unpleasant psychological state among the people who took their final decision to get divorced. That's why these changes will be introduced in autumn, and they will be based on the fact that if there is a chance to preserve the family, then these people will get time to take decision properly. Maybe they should communicate with specialists, but if the decision is taken and there is no underage children or some disagreements about the assets, so we will lift these obstacles to get divorced. We will simplify the procedure and provide the opportunity to people to take decision and to get proper certificate without bureaucratic procedures.
Зараз ми покажемо, як працює система.
Now we will show you how the online system of registration of documents is operating. So I again would like to encourage you to use this system, because your passport, your application should be processed, and the documents which certify that you have the right to enter into marriage.
Не дасть.
This system will shorten time, will simplify it, and you will not have to communicate to the civil servants many times. Pavlo Moroz, you're welcome. Please present it. Good afternoon. Pavlo Moroz, Deputy Minister of Justice on the state registration and notary. Before I show how our site is working, I would like to add to that some background information. How it all started. It started from the fact when the Ministry of Justice finished the reform in the sphere of registration of business and real estate. The ministry has transferred these functions locally, and we got an idea to make a reform in the registration of civil status acts. And the idea was to transfer that from the Ministry of Justice to local authorities. We also examined the possibility how that could be done by the notary. For that, we created a working group, and the working group studied all the requirements of the society in the sphere of registration, and also examined, analyzed any ideas as to this reform. We were also examining what we can change in this sphere. And the first idea we got was the idea as to shortening the term of registration of marriage. Now, according to the legislation, after young people submit their application, they have to wait for 30 days. That is absolutely Soviet norm, and we have it in our legislation since Soviet times. This deprives the young people of the freedom of choice. And there are no such things in modern society. The young people have to, that they choose themselves whether they want to marry this day or in half a year, in a year. The first reaction is the working group includes not just the representatives of the Ministry of Justice, but the representatives of public sector. And the first reaction was, we need to think about that. Young people need to have time to address this issue, but then we decided to get all the critical information about that, all the information about that. And we decided that we're not talking that we remove that 30-day term. We just give the right to young people to choose when they would like to register their marriage. That's additional freedom that exists everywhere. In the United States, you can register your marriage within 1 day, or if you are the representative of conservative family, then people get ready during a year, and we have these 30 days. We need to be very balanced before we submit the draft law to the parliament as to this reform, and we examined all the statistical information. Now, in Ukraine, about, depending on the region, from 11 to 40% of young people get married according to the speedy procedure. The Ministry of Justice every year registers 620,000 marriages. 310,000 marriages. 150 young people get registered using the speedy procedure. The legislation should reflect what's happening in the state. It should be fixed at the legislative level. The society has this need to get registered within 24 hours, within 1 hour even. But we decided to start from the pilot project to check it in practice, how this will be happening. I'm sure that there will be no objections to that, but we will implement the pilot project. I'm sure that it will be successful, and after that we will submit to the parliament the draft law. As to our online services, one comment to that. The statistical data is very interesting. When there is no such chance in the legislation, the general norm is 30 days. And there was a norm that in some exceptional cases, the young people could get married quicker when the bride is pregnant or because of some other reasons. But that means when we are launching legally the possibility to get registered, get married in 1 day, then we remove a lot of corruption. Because those young people who had to wanted to get registered sooner, they had to go to hospitals, to some other places, give bribes to get some certificates. When we do it legally, when we give you the chance to make this decision, to go and pay to the local budget some legal amount, then we remove another layer of corruption that existed in the society. We remove that when issuing certificates of birth, when we created this service in the maternity houses, and we remove it in registration of marriages. When you're starting, the way how you start your family, from the bribe or from the normal service, this is the way it will exist. So this initiative has a very big anti-corruption component. I'm sure that the parliament will pass all the package of legislation that will make it possible and now show how the document could be submitted. It's another method of overcoming corruption. You don't see the bureaucrat here. The documents are transferred via internet system. So please provide comments on how this is happening. The system online, system of getting of sending applications. From the beginning of the year, 3,000 applications were sent via this system. Statistically, it's a big number. This works well. Now we will demonstrate how you can send your application. Instead of going to the registration office, you can get registered online. Let's select the region. Let it be Kiev. Type of the body. Registration body, then a specific one. In Kiev, there are several of them. Darnitsky district, then the topic. The registration of marriage. We select the state registration of marriage. Show what else is there. The cancelling of the registration of marriage, birth of a new person. We select registration of marriage. Then we, in the comment, we write, for example, that we want to submit application, submitting the application. Then the date when you would like, let it be next Tuesday, time when you will, which is good for you. In the morning, let's do it in the morning, 10 o'clock. Then the data of the person who submits the application, phone number, email address, any Petrov.
Якщо
Once we want to submit documents, we add any file, then we store that and submit. This is it. Very easy. There's a call center. If you fail to do something, there's a phone number of the call center. We can call even now, and we'll see how it works. I have a phone number.
от, 044
.44 206 7110. Now all the lines are busy. It's working. After the music, there's some line. They're just taking the phone calls. People are calling there. If we had time, we could wait, but I'm sure that if in half an hour we call them, someone will answer. That's it. 1 minute. After the working group that is created in the Ministry of Justice, after it finishes its work, after it defines what we need to change, it will switch to the process of legislative drafting. We will develop the draft as to introducing amendments to the family code and other laws and bylaws. so that practically we can implement these reforms into life. And I would like to give the floor to our MP, Igor Alexeyev. Good afternoon, Yuri Alexeyev, Народный Front, People's Front faction, as to the latest initiatives of the Ministry of Justice in the sphere of registration of acts of civil status. That's not the first pilot project. Issuing the birth certificates in maternity houses, the possibility to submit application in electronic format, the latest initiative as to getting married in 24 hours. These are initiatives which the state is doing for the citizens. It's not what the citizens are doing for the state. These are initiatives which remove bureaucracy, lines, and they create favorable environment for the citizens. The first feedback as to introducing this pilot project on registration, the acts of civil status in 1 day, we see a big interest of territorial communities in such initiative, and we do hope that such initiative will be successful and this pilot project will expand to other cities of Ukraine. And in the end, as to cooperation of the MPs with the Ministry of Justice, I would like to tell you openly that we have established quite a good cooperation between the MPs of different factions and the Ministry of Justice, and this work produces some results. We see successful voting for the law on registration of business and real estate. We see successful voting for the reform of executive service, the law on the status of judges.
There is cooperation and professional dialogue between the executive and the legislative power. And this announced draft law on registration is a needed reform, a reform that removes archaic system of registration that was built during Soviet model time, and the first proposals that were provided by the working group, we see that this is a reform that will be built on the European transparent model without any corruption. That's why there is time in the summer to work on this draft law in order to introduce coordinated draft law to vote for this, in order that our citizens this year or at the beginning of the next year would see a reformed system of the registration that is built on the system of European legislation, and that should be transparent, and the state should provide better conditions for getting such certificates. Thank you very much. We have our next event in several minutes. Dear colleagues, you can put your questions off records, but outside this hall. Thank you.